Welcome to episode 5 of ATSFE, ATS Fully Engaged on the Rocks podcast. I am one of your hosts, Mitchell Land. I'm here with my co-hosts, Tony.
Hello.
And Evan.
Good evening.
And tonight we have a special guest for you, none other than the OG himself, Devin. Devin, how are you doing?
I am doing excellent, and yes, I'm a very special guest.
Nice. I like it. So we're actually really excited to have you on. We have actually quite a few ancillary media products planned to go with the launch of the podcast. People hope to find those useful.
Excellent.
Really, we want to sit down. We want to talk to you about a lot of different things. We've got some questions for you. We're happy to riff on whatever you want to talk about. So we're not tied to any kind of script or anything.
See, don't give me that type of power because I'm like a squirrel, and I'll go off on weird directions that I have no idea where it'll end up. So,
well, we will try our best to rein you in.
It's my class while I'm teaching.
Yeah, exactly. Tony's a teacher. He's used to that. But the first thing, we like to do usually, we call it On the Rocks for a reason because it's supposed to be loose. It's supposed to be easy. It's not, we're not trying to win Emmys or Oscars or whatever kind of awards they give out for podcasts. I have no idea.
What?
There are podcast awards out there.
I'm sure there are, but we don't care. Mostly because the two listeners' vote count is not going to matter. So.
I think you got 4 listeners.
Yeah, well, at least
double.
We've got
double,
4, right? So we have our audience.
Yeah, this episode we're going to have 4, but other than that, yeah.
Right. So we like to go around and just tell everybody what we're drinking. And we'll let the guest of honor go first. Devin, if you happen to be imbibing, and it's okay if you're not.
Oh, yeah, I already swallowed down one shot of Jameson's Caskmate Coffee Brew.
Ooh, those are very good. I like those.
Yes, they are very. My favorite is the IPA. My wife loves coffee, so
yes.
Yeah.
So, funny story. We were at a bar. This was probably 2 years ago. And at that time, I was more in a beer phase than a whiskey phase. And on the chalkboard, it said Jameson's Caskmate IPA. Well, in my alcohol befuddled brain, I thought it was an IPA that had been, maybe aged in a Jameson barrel.
Aged in Jameson.
No,
that sounds good.
Which sounded great, right?
Actually, I would buy that. Yeah,
you're right. That looks like whiskey. Yes, it's Jameson. Oh. But anyway, I like that stuff. That's good stuff.
Yes,
except
definitely.
Of course you're drinking the coffee one, but Tony, you've already mentioned one time that you were drinking scotch.
I was drinking scotch. Yes, I am drinking the Glenlivet Caribbean Reserve. So it is a single malt scotch aged in not bourbon. Jeez, already
every single time.
Yeah, I know. In rum barrels, hence the Caribbean. So it's got a little bit tropical sweeter notes, but it's still Glenlivet single malt scotch, and it's really good. So
nice. Yeah,
is this a repeat beverage?
I know. I think it sounds.
I know I've talked about it, but I have not had it. So.
Oh,
Scotch is always. I save Scotch for the special because it makes me talk more.
No, you're not drinking that Scotch on the rocks, are you?
I am very much so. I have the whiskey ice balls.
I mean, that's a little better.
Yes, I suppose.
Tony, I'm not sure you need any assistance in talking.
What have you heard me before or something?
He knows you too well.
Somebody's been watching YouTube.
Might have caught a couple episodes on YouTube, something maybe every Saturday or something.
Nice.
Yeah.
That would be the War Room with Eddie Jester and Russ Swordsman. Yeah. Uh-huh. Love those
Excellent
guys.
Show, by the way. 2 thumbs up. I always try to catch you guys. And I love when you give us grief when we do the Lock and Load show at the same time as we do your show. So we appreciate that, and we just want to show you the love. So
that's always good, yeah.
Although, really, Tony, is it Caribbean or Caribbean? Or maybe we should ask Evan.
Oh, because he's...
It's a lifelong question. I'm sure either is acceptable.
Caribbean,
Evan,
Caribbean.
What are you drinking, Evan?
I am drinking an Agua de Valencia, which is a Spanish cocktail for the theme of today.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah, it's sort of like a French 75, like a Spanish style French 75. It's got gin, vodka, cava, which is just Spanish bubbly, and orange juice.
Nice. That's old school.
It's refreshing.
I like it. I like French 75s, but they're very sweet to me. So is that sweet as well?
It is a little bit. With French 75, though, the recipe calls for simple syrup, and you can just ignore that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just don't put it in.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Mitch?
I have a Godfather, which is Scotch and Di Serono. Well, Scotch and Amaretto. I happen to be using Glenlivet, not the Caribbean style.
I have to cover all your bases every time you say the word.
Correct.
Say it both ways.
And Di Serono. The normal recipe, or the quote-unquote official recipe, calls for 2-to-1, 2 Scotch to 1 Amaretto. I'm doing 3-to-2, 3 Scotch to 2 Amaretto. But
I've got some Amaretto. I'll have to try that.
They're very good, and yes, you drink it on ice. So,
is that the 3-to-2 column or the 2-to-1 column, or is it the 1.5 to 1 column?
Melee odds. I will have lower morale when we're done.
But higher morale right now.
No.
Correct.
Very high morale.
The lower morale comes in the morning.
Right. Exactly. Well, thank you all for joining us for Cocktail Hour. And we're going to get into it now with Devin, the OG. Woo. So Devin, we like to start off with really tough questions. So the first question I have for you is cake or pie?
Cake.
Oh.
That was fast. It was instantaneous with the response.
Someday I'm going to find somebody who likes pie. But.
I like pie, but I still prefer cake over pie.
Really? Okay.
Well, I mean, y'all have seen me. It's not like I'm averse to eating both cake and pie, but if given the choice, it's definitely going to go for the cake.
Yeah.
So.
Well, then we probably should expand on that. The follow-up is whipped cream icing or buttercream icing?
Oh, whipped cream.
Really?
Buttercream.
Yes.
Oh,
interesting.
Buttercream all the way. Jeez. Rookie.
There's something about whipped cream I don't like. I prefer the full buttercream, but I don't actually like cake, so there you go. But,
I used to work in
opinions. Oh.
I used to work in a bakery, so I've seen both of them, and I prefer the buttercream. It's like a big block of lard, so it's really good.
Buttercream is very, very heavy.
It is. Right.
Yeah, and I will probably, in my youth, would have said buttercream, but as I am growing more aged and wise into the ways of the world, and also trying to do everything I can to control my weight, let's go.
Going for the whipped cream is probably the right move. Nice. All right, well, now that that's out of the way, so I have always wondered, how did you get the OG, the original Grognard?
Oh,
Evan has a different take on that. The original Grognard Nick.
Now you're asking me if I should reveal some of my deep, dark,
that's
personal, hidden, dirty. Okay, all right,
Devin. Let me put it this way. Nobody's listening, so go ahead.
I mean, almost literally, almost.
Now, trust me. When this goes to publication and I put it on my site, you're going to get maybe 6 or 7 more listens. So,
why do you think we invited you? No, I'm just kidding. I had no thoughts on our calculations at all.
Well, all right. All right, let's get into this. There is a certain website out on the internet that is probably known as the wretched hive of scum and villainy of the internet, known as 4chan. You've heard of it, I'm sure. One of the subforums on there is a subforum called TG, Traditional Gaming. And honestly, it's just about the only thing I ever went to 4chan for forever. And most of it is... Let me have some dignity in this, all right?
Don't make us bust out the Busty Volgo.
Under the traditional gaming subheading, there was a thread there were 2 threads that I was part of for the longest time. The Flames of War thread and the historical war games thread. Now, mostly the historical war games thread was miniatures gaming, and that's fine. I did a lot of miniatures gaming in my day, but I also tried to bring the hex encounter view to a lot of these younger kids. And we had a podcast. Those of us on TG, there was about 8 of us that had a podcast, and you can actually still find they're still doing the podcast. And I left like 5 years ago, but if you go to where is it? If you do a word search for Panzer Funk Radio, you should be able to find all the old episodes. And I was in like the first 8 or 10 episodes. And at the time I was like 45 and the oldest guy in the room, oldest guy on the podcast. So they would just call me, Devin's the Grognard or Steel Whip, because that was my handle at the time. He's the Grognard, but he's a good Grognard. So out of that, since they just started calling me the good Grognard, it's like, all right, well, I'm just going to start calling myself the OG, the original Grognard, kind of after the OG original gangster type thing. So and that's how I just started calling myself the OG, and it stuck, and I can't get rid of it. So I'm stuck with it. So, but it's a good moniker. I like it. Other people seem to like it. So really, it came from a podcast that I was part of years and years and years ago, and I just kind of took it over as my own nickname.
Nice. I love it. I mean, it's great. Right? Although,
I thought that picture was you. At first.
No.
But I know it's not.
Yeah,
I know
for the
it's
longest
not,
time. For the longest time, I thought that like you were doing reenactment kinds of things, and you dressed up as a Grognard, right?
I would have no. Oh yes, I do pronounce it Grognard instead of Grognard, which
we've talked about this on the show. The Grognard is the correct pronunciation. Even if you speak French, Grognard sounds much better than Grognard for what you're trying to say.
Right.
Well, what I think of it is I'm an uncultured, uncouth American, so I'm going to pronounce it, in the most literal way I can. So.
That's how it's spelled. I mean, come on.
Exactly.
No, I love it. All right, so narrowing down, we're getting closer to the meat of our subject now that you're loose and warmed up. Do you have any idea why the hot stove packs are called hot stove packs?
I have no clue. I helped work on the hot stove packs, but the only thing that I can think of, and I'm not even sure if this is related. We all know our friend Andre Gorello, who did CSIR, Nikitavica, and
we want to talk about him later, but yeah, go ahead.
Oh, we can get to him. And he also did the Red Christmas pack. In the Red Christmas pack,
phenomenal.
He had definitely great scenario packs. He's a wonderful designer. He had a special scenario rule in one of the Red Christmas scenarios that included a field stove, a hot stove.
This is the bane of my existence, OG.
Not the hot stove.
This rule is the frostbite rule. Because if you're within so many
frostbite rules,
I love it.
Well. Yeah, Mitch loves it because he was okay, and he rolled for me and got rid of half my group. Yeah, yes. So it's all. If you ever hear Mitch and me playing, and he says frostbite, it's because I absolutely lost my ass on it. So.
I actually remember watching the two of you play one of the scenarios from Christmas, and but I can't say that's specifically where Ray got the idea for the hot stove packs, because I think in Hot Stove Pack 1 he did have a field stove, and there was a scenario in there for that. Now I can't say one way or another. Ray, you know how Ray is; he doesn't like to share much with the rest of the class. So that's the only thing I can assume that where the hot stove pack names came from.
Right. Now, yes. To be fair, if you call Ray, he will share all kinds of things.
Oh yeah. But you
in general, no. Right.
Yeah, I understand that Ray does not like having internet presence. I get it. I understand the reason. He got tore apart when he first started doing, like the first module he ever did, Roosevelt Ridge. He got a lot of bad press for that. And there's a lot of people out there in the ASL community who do not like Ray. We all know this. Yeah. So I get Ray's hesitation for stepping into social media. It just makes it a little bit hard on the people, or those of us who like to play his games. that he's not really around that much.
Right. So. Hence, ATSFE.
Exactly, and I'm surprised it's taken this long. And I am so glad it is you, Mitch, because a moment of silence for our dear departed friend Drew Dorman, who was a wonderful community outreach individual for the game. I think Drew, if he were still around, probably with Facebook would have started up something similar to what.
Absolutely,
you're doing, so.
He would. I mean, there's a reason he was the ATS guy, right?
Yes,
absolutely.
And he is missed.
I agree. Absolutely. Yep, that one of my fondest memories of ATS was he came up to St. Louis and he stayed with a buddy of mine who lives out west from here a little bit, and we had a weekend of ATS with Drew Dorman, and it was just
very cool. Very cool.
Yep. Okay. Wow. Way to bring us all down, Devin.
Anyway, gotta pour one out for Drew. I mean,
exactly. Everybody, toast to Drew. Drink up.
Salud. Toast.
You're here.
Slante.
Sorry, I had to pour.
That's all right.
I already finished my glass, so
nice. All right, so we've gotten into the meat of ATS. So tell us a little bit, and then I'm going to shut up and let the other guys ask some questions too. Let's start with your involvement in ATS in the old days. You've already talked a little bit about Ray, but so just for the listeners, sorry, we probably should have mentioned this, 20 minutes ago. The reason we asked Devin to be on, not just because he's a fantastic guy and he is a grognard, but Devin has designed a module. It first came out as Axis Legion. It's since been, I think there were 2 editions of the Axis Legion version, right?
There was Axis Legion, which was for ATS, and then there was Spanish Fury,
Division.
which was the Spanish Fury, which was the ASL comp version, and then the second version, I don't remember what Ray called it, where he actually put in winterized boards this time.
Yeah, I think that one's Spanish Division Azul.
Right. It's very. It wasn't the name I originally came up with everything, so
that's okay.
Yep, exactly. I just can't.
Well, just I ordered the winter maps today and I want to talk a little bit about that, but I was waiting for the 30% coupon to come out. But anyway, so I will ask the first question, and then I'll promise Tony and Evan I will let you guys talk.
No, we're enjoying it.
You guys are just drinking.
Hey, listen to two designers go. Talk to each other. I'm all up. That's all. Right. I'm up for that. So yeah.
I mean, my primary question was really what drew you to that subject. I mean, before I got to ATS and before I saw the Axis Legion product, I didn't even know the Spanish fought on the Eastern Front on behalf of the Germans. So, how did you get there?
Well, it goes back to whenever I play any medieval game, like what's the big one? Total War, medieval, or Europa Universalis 2, Europa Universalis 3, 4, Crusader Kings. I always start off with playing Spain because I have just this absolute fascination with medieval post-Reconquista Spain. I don't know where it comes from, but Spain always fascinates me. And so when I decided to make the pitch to Ray, because at the time when I did it, I wasn't even sure he was going to approve it. It's like, all right, what can we do with something we haven't seen? Well, I can't say I'm a historian because I have no official training, although I'm looking at like 5 bookcases worth of historical novels and historical books. I might know a thing or two about World War II. But the Spanish Blue Division always, again, just absolutely fascinated me. And, a lot of people will say, well, Franco, he was a fascist, yada, yada, yada. It was a little bit more involved with that. It's not so much that the Spaniards were fighting for Germany. They were fighting against Russia more than anything else. If you take a look at the what the communists did during the Spanish Civil War, where they stole, I don't know, like they stole a lot of gold from the Spaniards as payment to the not the Nationals, the other side, the guys who lost.
Republicans.
The Republicans. And Spain, a lot of Spain really did not like the communists for that. So, yes, Franco was a fascist. yes, part of it was because they wanted to help Germany, but most of it, this was Spain's chance to try to get some revenge on the communists, and that's really one of the biggest reasons why they got involved in the war. And I always thought that was a very interesting kind of dichotomy, because it's not that they were fighting for fascism, but they were fighting against communism, and that was a unique reason to get into war. And just the story of the 250th Infantry Division, it's just phenomenally amazing. I just absolutely love it. So when I decided to pitch the project, it's like, all right, there's two ways I can go with. I can go with their initial actions on the Volkhov River, or I can do their actions at Krasny Bor. Well, I didn't want to do Krasny Bor because the gamers at the time had come out with a game in the mid-90s, early to mid-90s, called Black Wednesday, which was focusing on the Spanish Blue Division fighting at Krasny Bor. And I didn't want to repeat myself or repeat a game, so it's like, all right, let's do the actions along the Volkhov River. So I made the pitch to Ray, and he most surprisingly loved it, accepted it, and said, all right, go for it, do it. And I was kind of sat there going, oh, I didn't think that was going to happen that way.
Oh, crap. Now I got to deliver.
Now I actually have to deliver something, exactly. So
no, I'm just an idea guy.
Mitch says that all the time. So you obviously knew a lot about this subject before you pitched it, of course. But then, what was your process for researching and kind of thinking about how you wanted to make an ATS game out of it? Because, for example, the other game is TCS, so it's a higher scale, and there's lots of different ways to go. So what made you think, okay, this is how I'm going to do this? I'm going to take these specific battles. I'm going to use these books. Go.
Well, now you're asking me to really dig deep into my memories, because it's like 17 years ago.
Yeah.
The first thing is research, and I probably picked up, I don't know, there are very few books in English that actually cover the 250th Infantry Division, and I own most of them. So nice. It started off with that, and just the actions at the Volkhov River when they made their first initial river crossing, and just how brutal the winter fighting was at the time. Because as we all know, the Eastern Front was just brutal to begin with, but this was even more so. There was at one point during the winter that somehow, or sometimes when they gave directions, it's like, oh, just go down about 100 yards to the pile of dead Russian bodies, take a left, and that'll take you into the village. That was kind of just that's how it was.
I'm sorry, that's funny, but I mean, it's all. I've heard some of the atrocities that the Russians did do as well. So there were
atrocities on both sides. That's the Eastern Front. It was also a lot of the battles were no more than was one battalion ever engaged at any one time across the Volkhov. So it's like, all right, this is small enough. I can make this work as a tactical system. It's a subject that hasn't been covered before. It's a subject that not a lot of people know about. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and do this. And now let's research. Oh, yeah. There's not many topographical and reconnaissance maps of rural Eastern Russia. The Germans were great at keeping records of everything. They were also just as anal about destroying everything at the end of the war.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, we don't know half the shit they did because of that.
Oh, yeah. No, so research
isn't Eastern Russia just flat? I mean, all steps. Right?
There, lots of trees too. Lots and lots of trees. So I actually, at one point, I actually broke down and was using Spanish search engines to look up for information of the 250th. Unfortunately, there is still a museum in, I think it's in Seville, that is dedicated to the 250th. So I actually reached out to them. They were able to help me with my, Google Translation Spanish to talk to them. They were able to get me some maps and some information. Wow. But yeah, overall, I think the research from the date that I realized, oh wow, I actually have to do this, to the time that I was comfortable to start writing scenarios, probably took me 6 or 8 months. of just research to get to the point where I was like, all right, this is the story I want to tell with this module. This is the flow. These are the scenarios I'm going to do this. And then I can start now working on the maps and then working up the scenarios. So yeah, it was, I probably should have gone with something a little bit easier, but hey, nothing like being thrown into the pool in the deep.
Yeah, got to sink or swim. So
that's right.
So talking about that. So, okay, everybody knows I'm a teacher, and actually this year I'm teaching geography. So that kind of leads me into this next question. I know I'm looking forward to it. But how did you use a how did you do the map? How did you go about doing that? Because that, to me, part of wargamings in general is the maps. Like, there's if anybody knows Clay Stone, he says he's a map whore, and I get that because I love looking at the maps. I love, and then I love kind of hearing especially if it's an abstract map. So, like, I'm looking at Comancheria right now and how abstract that is, and the whole idea behind that. But then I'm also looking at Czechoslovakia as well, and how those maps. So, how did you get to the point where you were able to build those maps up?
Well, the one thing that I think all of us actually love the most, other than the impulse system about ATS, is the historical maps.
I'm sorry, Devin, could you repeat that?
That would be one of the things we love the most would be the impulse system of the game.
Yes. And then followed by?
The historical maps.
Exactly. All right, continue. Sorry.
So I knew I had to make them as historically accurate as possible, and a couple months into the research, when I realized I couldn't find good maps of the area, let alone no recon, honestly, I broke down to using Google Maps to get a good idea of where these battles were fought, and then using what little maps I could get from the Spanish Museum, and basically kind of had to piece them together. Now, obviously, the villages that were across the Volkhov River that these were fought over are more built up than they were in the 1940s. So, but it gave me a good idea of what the river was like next to the landmass, and with the maps that I got from the Spanish government, was able to piece together. Now, is it 100% accurate? No, probably not. But I don't think anybody would be able to get 100% accurate for, such a rural, desolate area that this was fought over. But I think I did as well as I could have to get the maps as historically accurate as possible. So,
nice.
Yeah, it's one of those things. The maps are always kind of the coolest thing. Just going from, hey, I've got an idea, to actually doing a legitimate, as best as you could. Like, obviously, you don't always have the map capabilities to do that, but just having that is just really, really cool. And just to hear how you basically had to take modern maps and historical maps and kind of say, okay, let's take these two and see kind of what they look like together to make up your map.
Basically both backwards and forward engineering the maps.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting, especially with me teaching geography and map making and stuff like that. So I was kind of curious on that. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no. So if I'd have done something like Nijmegen or Arnhem or something like that, which of course he already does have the Arnhem maps. It probably would have been a little bit easier because there's a lot more maps of it. No, I had to pick something in bumfuck outside Russia somewhere.
Right. So I think Evan might have some questions about scenarios, but I just want to ask. So did you have much to do with the re-release with the winter maps?
Not as much as I would have. Well, no, Ray gave me everything that I wanted to do. The problem was he didn't bother to reach out to me to tell me he was doing it. Andre actually reached out to me on Facebook and he said, "Hey, Devin, you know that Ray is redoing, doing a second edition?" It's like, he is. He didn't bother to tell me. So I reached out to him and said, there's some tweaks and some changes I'd like to do. Some of the scenarios were not as balanced as I would have liked to have had them. So you will see some changes in 3 or 4 of the scenarios from the original to the second edition. Okay. And that was due to my input. But but beyond that, the only changes were really, aside from my input, was just changing to the winter maps.
So, So I had a very specific question.
Okay.
So Tony and I just played Into the Forest, and you and I had a little bit of talk about that. And by the way, I did use the quote you gave me. It's going to be in one of the articles that goes along with the release week for all this stuff. But regarding the Russian mortars. But anyway, the biggest difference I noticed between the maps is that the Capitan Navarro hilltop got the hillock markings in the winter map that were not present in the original map. Was that you, or was that Ray?
That was Ray. That was Ray. You got to remember, this was my very first scenario design work that I had ever done, and the Captain Navarro Hill, not as clean as it could have been. I mean, with the pancake LOS effect, it's the map works much better now that Ray put the hillock markings on it, which probably I should have done originally. I just didn't, because I didn't think of it. So yeah, no, that was all Ray, and I think they work a lot better. You got the line of sight is a lot easier, and you don't have coming right up over the crest of the hill, and there's the top of the hill.
There you are, right? So I will absolutely agree with that. I played. So Tony and I played. We played with the winter maps, which has the hillock. I played recently face to face. The only maps I had were the original maps, which do not have the hillock, and you could definitely tell the difference. Right.
Oh yeah, no. If you're attacking up the hill, or if the Spaniards are attacking down the hill, it's a huge advantage either way if you're attacking up or attacking down, just because of the line of sight issues.
Correct. So spoiler alert, listeners. Look forward to the article. And Evan, you got something?
Oh yeah, well I wanted to talk about the scenarios. I soloed through the first one and had a blast. I was holding my son, and he was taking a nap and didn't want to go down, so I was just like, well, all right, let's play this. This is a good time.
If I never see that first scenario again, it will be too soon.
You played it like 1,000 times. Because it's so short, you can play it over and over again.
That's the thing. And something I've discovered, and I've kind of knew beforehand from talking to other people like Andre and other people who've done design work before, smaller scenarios are so much harder to balance, because any good dice roll or bad dice roll has either a more positive or more detritus effect on the scenario as a whole. So, for 100%. Example, if you've got a heavy machine gun on one side, and for whatever reason it gets knocked out on the first turn, that's going to affect the entire balance of the game. And I probably played that scenario 50 times. And I was never happy with how it came out, but it was the first scenario. It was the opening chapter. It was the epilogue. I had to have that scenario in there. One of the most important scenarios. Plus, when I started getting feedback from my playtesters and other people down the line, I realized I can't playtest my own scenarios, because they were having wildly different results. They play in a different way. Their meta would be different. See, I was playing it, and this is a mistake I made, and I've tried to rectify it over the years, that I was playing it how I knew it historically played out. By battle reports and everything. And I wasn't thinking outside of the box. And that, I think, hindered me more than anything else, is that if you're going to design a scenario, you can't play it how it's historically played, because people don't play that way.
Because they don't know.
We're smarter.
Exactly.
We're smarter. No, we're smarter.
Well, I think...
I believe that.
I wouldn't make a comment at all about the balance, because I played it, and every other turn I was alternating, like, oh, this side is clearly better. And then the next turn, like, no, it's the other side is clearly better. But I do think, any scenario that uses like a courage mechanism makes it much more difficult to balance, like the leader that has courage and gives it to everyone and 6 exit around.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Hard to balance.
It was a bad balancing maneuver. I used it to try to balance that the Spaniards would be attacking uphill prepared positions. And I mean, Lieutenant Escobedo was a very brave individual. He did win, or he was awarded several very valorous medals by the Spanish government, and unfortunately passed away in 1946 due to wounds that he received fighting on that hill. But it probably wasn't the best balancing mechanic I could have used.
Wow. I mean, I had a lot of fun playing this scenario, so that I'm happy with it.
I'm glad. As someone who is a scenario designer, there is a huge amount of anticipation. Mitch, you've probably experienced this. Are people going to like it? Are people going to hate it? Are they going to yell at me? Mm-hmm. Are they going to have a good time? Did they enjoy it? Did they find a flaw that makes the game too unbalanced one way or another? And I mean, every design I've ever had and every design I've done since then, there's still this hesitation. It's like, I'm going to get yelled at. People aren't going to like it. And, and then my career is going to be ruined because, you're only as good as your last design. So, fortunately, the feedback has been mostly positive. I mean, you're always going to get the people who don't like it. And I accept that. I'm just very, very happy that people have enjoyed the scenarios that I've designed. At least most of them. And the funny thing is, people enjoy the scenarios I didn't think they would enjoy.
Isn't that the funny part, though? It's like, oh, nobody's going to like this. I know I have to put this in here, but nobody's going to like this one. But that one turns out to be everybody's favorite. Like, really?
Oh, yeah, exactly. And the ones that I think people are going to love, nobody ever talks about.
Classic. Can't figure people out.
No, I can't. So I stopped trying to figure them out. And it's like, all right, I'm just going to do the scenarios the way I want to do them.
Exactly. Make the game you want to play, right?
Exactly. And the people still surprise me. So,
so to dig a little bit deeper into the scenarios, I'm very curious how you came up with the scenario ideas. I mean, there's this very interesting progression of there's the 4 scenarios on one map and then the 4 scenarios on the other map, and they go in a nice chronological order. But I'm also very curious about how, is it more you come up with, okay, here's the historical situation and I take the OOB because I know there were, these units here, or is it more, okay, this is the general situation and I want to make a fun balance scenario, so I'm going to make, these changes. What was the process for that?
Well, it came down to I wanted to tell a story. And I broke the story down into 8 chapters. I had like 12 chapters, but a few of the scenarios and situations I decided to get rid of because they just weren't going to be that fun to play, or I couldn't make them balance work, or there was going to be a third map and I didn't feel like putting the third map in there. So I reading all the material and all the research that I had, I was able to craft the narrative, picking out several battles that the Spaniards dealt with, and just basically in chronological order, just did them 1, 2, 3, 4 straight down the line. Now, are all of them completely 100% accurate to the OOBs that was there at the time? I don't think many scenarios are going to have a complete 100% correct OOB. Even if, you use something like the History of the United States Army Operations in World War II, that 14-volume compendium that has, at the battalion level, everything listed out. At the battalion level, fine, but a lot of these games are reinforced company scenarios. And of course, we know the Germans destroyed everything, so we don't have good information from the Germans, and the Russians are loath to give up anything. So you kind of got to guesstimate what the forces were at the time. I mean, it's like, all right, so you have Company A of the 863rd Battalion, whatever it was. It's like, all right, I know what a company of Spanish volunteers were generally equipped with, how many squads there were. All right, I can go with that. They're fighting conscript Cossacks or Ukrainians. All right, no, not Cossacks, but the Ukrainians from the Urals. Urals? No. Whatever. Like I said,
from the Ukraine.
From the Ukraine, exactly. So I know what their typical OOB was, and then let's throw everything together and try to make it balanced. How to balance a scenario? I guess this gets into how to balance a scenario. That's the hard part. If it's
throw a dart at the wall.
Yeah. Sometimes it feels that way. If it's a meeting engagement, and honestly, there aren't very many meeting engagements that you're going to find, it's safe to go on pretty much what both sides can be relatively even. If the attacker is attacking into a well-fortified defended position, then you're going to have to work the forces a little bit differently. The attacker is going to have more, the defender is going to have less. Or if you have both sides relatively equal, you're going to have some special rules or conditions. Terrain plays a part in it. Does either side have armor? I mean, like I said, I find it completely shocking that sometimes we as scenario designers can come up with balanced scenarios with some of the forces we decide to go with. And make it a fun game, because honestly, that's what you want to do. You want to make it at least fun for both sides, for both players. So, in a couple of the scenarios, the Soviets really didn't have a chance, but I had to do something to make their side fun and playable. And you're going to find that with any scenario. Say, for example, and I'm running into this problem right now with I didn't run into it. I realized it and quickly discarded it. I'm working on Pegasus bridge module. And the initial landing, basically, when you get down to it, when the British captured the bridge, it was like 9 squads to like 2 squads of Osttruppen and a commander in a staff car. You can't really have 9 squads against 2 second line squads and make it fun. You're going to have to do something a little bit more, be it buff up the Germans, which is what most people do in, Pegasus bridge scenarios. You're going to have to come up with something. So, you can't really go 100% accurate, because one, you're not going to, you're just not ever really going to know what the exact composition of forces were. And it comes down to playability and fun.
See, you just said something that Mitch had said in an interview a while back, which I don't know if he'll ever remember saying, but he said he actually had to, he'll probably remember it now, but he actually had to buff up the North Koreans in next war Korea because it would be over so quickly. So, but hey, I got a question. So you have kind of made these scenarios, and I don't know if I'm taking Evan's question, but I'm going to ask it anyways because I like the idea.
Do it.
So you kind of, yeah. It bottles down to only about a half of what I had left. Anyways, so you have them kind of set up chronologically. It's almost like a campaign in itself. So if you pass one, if you hit those, you can go on to the next one. Do you think ATS should have more modules that have that kind of feeling to it? That they're kind of more of a chronological, here's the way they did it? Or is that just something that you thought would be fun to do?
I think, depending on the topic, let's take a look back at some of Ray's earlier stuff. Let's take, say, Against the Odds, say Arnhem, Panther Line. What was the Belgium landing, crossing the river, 1940, the gliders coming in. A lot of those older scenario packs that he did do actually follow along in a chronological. Now, you take a look at something like Mannerheim's Cross, and it's kind of hodgepodge of stuff from everywhere. So it kind of depends on what topic you're covering and what module you're covering. I personally like to see a story in the scenario so you can follow from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 and then see the flow and the progress of the battle. Also, it kind of makes it really easy to, kind of set up a campaign for it.
That's because I kind of look for that in some of the ATS scenarios or some of the ATS modules. Is kind of like, is there a story that goes along, or can I just pick a scenario out and it doesn't matter what happens? So when I was playing this with Mitch, and Mitch had kind of told me that, the first scenario is actually the river landing, I was like, this is kind of like a campaign, like you're going through. And he's like, yeah. I was like, so I've bought it as well. So now I'm going to have fun with it and kind of do the campaign. So I'm looking forward to it. It's one of those things that I think it's an opportunity that is there for the taking. And I think a lot of people kind of like the idea of campaigns. Now, whether we actually do it, because Lord knows we have more games than we could ever play. I know I do. And that's even with me trying to focus on playing them. I'm still having trouble. But I kind of like the idea of the campaign. So it's just kind of fun with that one. And so you kind of use that, I'm assuming, going forward with some of your other designs that you have done. Am I correct on that?
Well, yes and no.
If you can, let me rephrase this. If you can do that, you would prefer to do that. If you can't, you understand.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
A lot of what I do now basically comes down to what the boss wants. And since he's the one that pays me, it's like, all right, we're gonna do.
Gotta go there.
What the boss wants. Yeah. So
Gotcha.
And for those of you who know or may not know, I am a developer, lead designer, projects task manager for Lock and Load Publishing right now, and the Lock and Load tactical system is my wheelhouse basically. And we've got several box sets that we're working on. Not just me, but there are other box sets in the works. And the next one that I'm releasing that's coming out is used to be called Heroes Road to Stalingrad, but it didn't grammatically flow too well, and everybody thought it actually was just covering Stalingrad when it was actually Case Blue, which was the summer offensive that led to Stalingrad. So we changed the name to Heroes of the Bitter Harvest. Now that is more, it's covering a 6-month period and, a couple thousand square kilometers of battle. So I did try to put kind of a story element into it, but it's not really a story because, at one point you're going to be fighting in this one city and the next scenario may be, 500 miles away. So there's not really a story that's not connected with that. But you try to make it as historically accurate, and it's hard for me to say any one day if I'm a historian or I'm a gamer. I can't say which one comes first, and it changes from day to day. Yes, exactly, basically. So I try to put as much historical information to try to teach people about these things, because amazingly enough, there's a lot of gamers out there who aren't historians and just have no clue about what's going on. So. Right. Now, the Pegasus Bridge module that I'm working on, obviously, the fighting was, was like 12 hours before the beachhead broke through. So that one is definitely going to be written in a storyline campaign narrative format. The one module I just released, or not one module, the scenario book I just released a few months back, Battles to the Rhine for Lock and Load Tactical Heroes in Normandy, it covers a hodgepodge of battles over the entire Western Front, from D-Day all the way up to the Battle of the Bulge. So again, not really a narrative in that, just kind of a hodgepodge of scenarios like the Hot Stove Back. So my preference is to do storylines and narratives, but I don't always have that luxury.
Nice.
Yeah, that's cool. I was kind of curious about that, so that's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So since you brought it up, obviously you're clearly deeply involved in Lock and Load's tactical system and their business. What? Yep. How's that? A, congratulations, but B,
thank you, sir.
So how's that going? And then, do you lean on some of the other tactical systems out there? So, for instance, ATS has what is it? Operation Dead Stick. Something like that for the Pegasus Bridge. Do you look at some of those things and kind of say, okay, well, here's how I do this in the Lock and Load version, or where does all that kind of in your head? Where does all that kind of reside? And I'm not asking you to come down one way or the other, but
any assistance that I can get in designing something, I will take. For the Pegasus Bridge, I've looked at Avalon Hill or ASLs. Mm-hmm. I've looked at other Pegasus Bridge scenarios, other Pegasus Bridge games. I don't think there's anything wrong with looking at how everybody else does the same battle that I'm trying to replicate and seeing how they did it. And if they have a good idea and something that's historically narratively correct, then I don't see why I can't try to work that into my modules and my designs. I think a lot of designers are that way. Sure. So yes, I do look to other sources, and I consider it's all part of the research, because sometimes they may have information that I've missed in my research, and I'm more than happy to to take research anywhere I can get it.
Right. No, I like it.
Is the fact that in you can plead the fifth on this one, is the fact that the Lock and Load Tactical is an impulse system, is that is that one reason why you kind of really gravitated towards it? Because we love the impulse system, and I don't disagree with the fact that lock and load tactical system is fun, and the impulse system is part of the fun that I enjoy about it. I've tried ASL, and I just don't even I don't know. It's the whole I go you go is just too much for me a lot of times, and I love the chaos. But does that do you kind of lead more towards that impulse system for the games that you like to design for?
I'm a recovering ASL player, so any tactical system that is easier than ASL, I'm going to jump on in a heartbeat. So it got to the point where I got tired of trying to give birth to an accountant every time I played ASL. ASL, for what it does.
Devin, I have to say, you are freaking fantastic for one-liners. I'm just telling you.
Well, thank you. As my mother used to tell me, or not my mother, because parents always love their children. But as I say, I've got a voice for print and a looks for radio. So, I've had to rely on wit more than mostly skill or talent or anything like that to get my way. Get through. But anyways, okay. What was the question again? Oh, the ATS.
Impulse system.
Being the impulse system. I love the impulse system. And cute little story, if you'll allow me the indulgence. When I first discovered ATS, I was in my local game store, and at this point in my life, I'd kind of given up on hex encounter games because this is the late '90s, early 2000s. Pretty much, it was just MMP and GMT. They were about the only ones left. I thought hex encounter were done, so I just wasn't paying attention to them. But I was at one of my local game stores, and I was wandering through, and I saw this black box. And it looked like an old Avalon Hill bookcase game. So I grabbed it. It was against all odds. Oh. And I flipped it over and I looked at the back and it's like, oh, this looks like an old Avalon Hill back. Wait a minute, this looks like Squad Leader. But it doesn't look like Squad Leader. So I hemmed and I hawed. It's like, this looks really cool, but I know nothing about the company. I don't want to play ASL. So I put it back on the shelf, went home, looked on the internet, and discovered this company called Critical Hit. And that against the odds, that version was the advanced Tobruk system. And I've got a copy of Tobruk, the original Tobruk, still sitting on my shelf. Mm-hmm. It's like, all right, I can get into this. So the next day I went back and I picked it up. Nice. And then I started reading through the rules, which I think were like 1.75 version.
I think the oldest version I have is like 2 point something. But
yeah, it's all right. Yeah.
So I started reading through this, and the thing that hooked me almost immediately was the impulse system. Mm-hmm. I love the impulse system. I think it allows the game to flow faster. Both sides are continually occupied with what's going on, because a turn, if you know what you're doing, it's not going to take you very long, and the other person's got to jump in to do his turn. Yes, and like Squad Leader, you got to look for like opportunity fire and stuff like that. But at least with the impulse system, you're more engaged. So that's really what hooked me into ATS. And then a few years later, I picked up Lock and Load's Mark Walker's Eisenbach Gap, which is the first edition, the Platoon World War II. That used the chit draw, which is kind of an impulse system as well. Yeah, and I fell in love with that game as well too. So yeah, I have to say I do prefer the impulse system over an I Go You Go. It's just a more elegant system in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. I will say that I've been working on an article about the impulse system, which is of course ATS adjacent, and kind of the benefits of the impulse system, and why I prefer it over the I Go You Go in most cases. I haven't found one case where I'd be like, well, it'd kind of be nice to have an I Go You Go, especially the way a lot of the games are set up, where okay, you have this army, this army, this army, this army. Well, why can't you do a chit draw for that particular army to kind of help with the chaos? So I was really curious. So the impulse system is definitely the way you prefer to play your games. I mean, I've watched you on YouTube, so I know you enjoy those types. You kind of play those types of systems where it's like you don't quite know. And if you're playing solo, that's what's kind of cool about playing solo is with the impulse system, is that you move something and then all of a sudden you're like, shit, I left that open. Well, guess what? I'm gonna exactly. And and so that's that's pretty cool. It makes the chit draw or the impulse system makes it easier to play solo because Lord knows we don't all have the friends that we would like to have friends to play the game. So
I'm wounded, Tony.
I have no friends at all.
Tony, you have no room to.
Luckily, I have no excuse because I always have Mitch to play with.
That's right.
So
exactly.
Yeah, so and me and Evan have been playing as well. So it's pretty cool. So. Unfortunately, school's starting back up, so my time playing, I go to when it comes to school, I start becoming a pumpkin about 10 Eastern, so that's like 7 your time.
And trust me, Tony needs his beauty sleep.
Oh yes, I mean, as the older you get. Not saying you're old or anything, Tony.
Don't finish that. Just stop.
Hey! All I know is I'm finally not the youngest one at the table because, Evan's the young one here. So
that's true.
I can be the young.
I'm also not the oldest either. So
the young Grognard, the YG.
That's right. Hey, we've got old guard, young guard, and middle guard, right? I mean,
yep.
I don't know where Tony is, but the rest of us are set.
Oh, well, here's a difficult question, Devin, and you may have to lie, and it's okay.
I try not to lie. I may have a little bit.
Oh, that's fine. Either way, same thing. Do you still play ATS occasionally?
I would love to spend more time playing ATS. It's been a couple years since I played ATS. I did a playthrough the Arab-Israeli expansion.
Yes.
I did the Abu Agila scenario.
By the way, that was a great exercise in the 3 different systems. I really enjoyed that. I'm telling you, I really enjoyed it to show how 3 different systems played the same battle. That was really cool, by the way. I really commend you on that.
I would love to do that. I would love to do that more. It's just hard sometimes finding the same battle in 3 different systems that I own. So I would love to do more of that.
Right.
Because I did get a lot of good positive feedback from that, and I thought it was a really cool, unique thing to do.
Mm-hmm. I watched it. I don't have that much time to play games anymore, and that sounds really odd because I spend so much of my time working with games. When I actually have free time, I don't want to do more work with games. And clearly,
that's the oddest,
clearly, you need to sever the relationship with Lock and Load.
I don't know. They pay me. So.
Although, Devin, now that you say that, I think Mitch is probably the designer who plays the most games of any war game designer ever.
With all of Mitch's work,
they're not yours, exactly.
Yeah.
I know. I've still got my ATS stuff. I am looking directly at my ATS stuff right now.
Evan, ask your question.
What was my question? You have to ask
about the ATS collection.
Oh, was that my question? Oh, we asked Scott. Yeah,
right.
I mean, Scott says he has literally almost every single ATS product. I'm sure I hope you can't compete with that because that's ridiculous. But
my ATS collection is actually rather small and modest. Let's just say under 10 titles, maybe 9 or 10 titles.
Wow. And one of those is yours, so that
yeah, exactly. One of them is mine. Actually, 2 of them are mine, the first and the second edition.
Wow.
So, like 20% of the games are yours. So 80% of your collection is other people's ATS games.
It's.
But so, did you play a lot of ATS before you started designing an ATS module?
Not really. It was probably about a year from the time I started playing ATS to the time that I started working with Andre and doing playtesting for his stuff. And once I saw what Andre was doing and what he was putting into it, it's like, hey, I think I could do this. So it was only probably a couple months after I started doing playtesting for Andre that I reached out to Ray and said, hey, I've got this idea. What do you think? And he said yes. And, a year later, it's actually getting put out the door. So not as much time as probably should have had.
But at the time, it literally was the only hex encounter game I was playing. So I just absolutely, like I said, I adore the system. I truly do. The problem is sometimes I get the rules confused when I was playing with ASL and get the rules confused with lock and load. So I play so many, at one point I was playing 3 tactical systems, and it's like, can I do bypass in this, or can I not do bypass? Residual, let fire. What system was fire lanes?
Collateral file.
Collateral fire. Yeah. It's like, and I'm looking through the rule book for like a half an hour. It's like, oh no, that was in ASL or what have you. So no, my biggest thing is it's just I do so much with Lock and Load Tactical plus all the other titles that were. In fact, I've got a playtest of Heroes of Grenada literally sitting on my desk that I'm working on right now for Ralph. And that's I'm doing in my free time. So, if given half a chance, face to face with somebody, I would sit down and play ATS in a heartbeat again.
Nice.
It was as much work as I do for Lock and Load Tactical. ATS is still my go-to tactical system, even though I haven't played it in years. But
that's how I describe it. And so you kind of mentioned it in passing, but so Andrea, I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm very sorry.
Andre
Guerrero.
Andre Guerrero.
So Nikitovka 1941 Red Christmas, which have since been re-released as Roman Glory and Red Christmas 2. Right. 2 of my absolute favorite modules, hands down. No offense, Devin. Probably
none taken.
2 best modules in the system.
Andre has done some phenomenal work.
Right. Can you just talk about how that worked and what you thought? And
it was actually really, really fun. I probably played more of his scenarios playtesting. Well, then I probably did playtest in my own scenarios, but it was really fun because he was very open, and every day I was shooting him off an AAR over a scenario I was doing. And honestly, I think it's either the 7th or the 8th scenario in Nikitovka. That's probably one of my favorite scenarios of all time for any game. It's when the Italians are coming on from the western edge, and they've got the little tankettes, and the Soviets are coming on with flamethrowers and 234. Just probably my absolute one of the top 5 favorite scenarios of all time.
Nice.
And it was just he gave us the scenarios and we just play test them, and Andre's such a great designer. They were just fun to play. I mean, he had one scenario in there, the 4th or 5th one, that actually used a barrage artillery. How often do we see barrage artillery in a scenario?
Never. Exactly. I mean, I read the rules every now and then. I'm like, I've never seen this. What the hell?
Yeah, no, it's in one of the CSIR Nikitovka ones. And the funny thing is, Andre had like 5 or 6 of us that were playtesting it, and we were playtesting the scenario, and all of us were just getting these wildly divergent results on everything. And then we started to narrow it down. It's like, okay, it's the barrage rules, and so here we are sitting and trying to argue. We actually went to Ray about it, and at the time, I think this was 1.9 or 2.1 of the earlier editions. And Ray looked at, I wrote the barrage rules wrong. This is the way the barrage rules. So here we are, 6 or 7 of us for like a month trying to figure out these barrage rules. And Ray just goes, oh, no, I did it wrong. Here's the way you, and once he gave us the corrected ruling on it, it's like, okay, now this tends to work.
But I mean, kudos to that. Hey, we pointed out a problem, fix the problem, move forward.
Oh yeah. So.
Awesome.
But Andre was supposed to do a 3rd title,
really?
Part of his trilogy. It was his trilogy. But he just decided not to do the 3rd one.
Did he get out of wargaming or for some other reason?
No. I still talk to him. He and I are Facebook friends, and he still does a lot of wargaming. He loves the old SPI detergent box games. So he plays those all the time still. I don't want to talk out of shop. I think there was some issues between he and Ray that never got resolved. So, but I can't confirm or deny that. So
sure.
And I don't want to speak bad about either side.
That's fine. Yep. It is what it is, right? So,
do you think Andre would be interested in doing a brief podcast?
You know what? I think reach out to him. He's on Facebook. I think there might be a chance you'd be able to get him.
Oh, that might be cool.
Good to know.
Yep.
Especially those. So Mitch cut my teeth on those modules, those two modules, because he told me those are two of the best modules. And honestly, I've had so much fun with every scenario in those. I've had great stories, and I always tell the same one out of those modules. And yeah, it has to deal with a satchel charge and throwing it back. So, I mean, seriously, how many games can you actually throw a satchel charge back? It's
The only thing that I didn't like about Red Christmas was, and we've talked about this before, the silly frostbite rules.
Oh, this is the best part. Come on.
But they would lose more troops from the frostbite than you do to enemy action.
You can't.
But that's historically accurate in most cases when it comes to War in the Winter. So,
Although,
what are you going to do?
What? Unless you're within a certain range of the
stove.
So ridiculous.
Or I think if you were in a certain range of a tank too, I think that was another one of the possibilities.
Yeah, like holding your hands up against the warm engine block or whatever.
Yeah,
or
beat up against
the tank, one of the two. So.
Nice.
Yeah, next to the I actually let a tank get exploded just so I could have the heat from the fire. So
I mean,
gotta do what you gotta do.
Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. Exactly.
Hey, if it works, it works.
Right. All right, guys. I think we've maybe taken up enough of Devin's time. Any last questions? Any last thoughts? No.
This has been great. It's been very interesting.
Very much appreciate.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
So
thank you, gentlemen.
And I'll be tell you, I've actually kind of inspired to look at possibly, now I could be the whiskey talking, but actually looking at some scenario, doing something in some areas that I have so you had an interest in this Spanish area. I have a strong interest in like Eastern European, such as like Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia, and during that time period, and how they. So that's kind of got me thinking. Hey, this is, and I always pick the odd topics too. So I get where you're coming from when it comes to this, the Spanish. You're like, that's the oddest topic you could think of. Well, that's kind of the games I like, is the ones on odd topics that you don't even think about. So
right.
So,
well, all I can say is do it. There's nothing holding you back but yourself from doing it. I mean, it's a little bit difficult, but if you know how to research, you know how the game's played, and you know how to make. If you know how to have fun at the game, you know how to make a scenario that's fun for other people as well. So do it.
Okay.
It's great advice. I mean, seriously. I mean, aspiring designers, right? I mean, I see Ray talking in the newsletter sometimes, the Friday email or whatever, about all the quote unquote battalion, whatever, but people are submitting stuff all the time, apparently, right? And product is coming out. Some of it is.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, there are so many people that will badmouth Ray and what he does and how he does things. But the simple fact is that he is putting out more product than all of ASL and all the other third-party designers put together. So he must be doing something right.
Yep. And, and I don't want this to turn into like a Ray bashing or even a Ray praising thing, but, he will take stuff. Somebody submits stuff for ATS, he'll turn it into ASL comp. That's fine.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody submits something for ASL, he'll turn it into ATS. Fine.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
We all win
with them doing that. Yeah,
right?
exactly. That's more product.
So, now I will say I'm not sure it undergoes the same rigor that it used to, but whatever. I'll take it.
Yep.
Anyway,
I get it.
So, Devin,
sir,
the OG, the original Gronger, we very, very seriously, original gangster. We very much appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate. Yeah,
gentlemen,
great.
I want to thank you guys for doing this. I mean, for the longest time, there has definitely been a lack of ATS interactivity inside the community. I mean, really, we had critical hit message board and then a fan made Facebook group. What you guys are doing is fantastic, and I cannot thank you guys enough for doing this. And please continue doing it.
We appreciate that. Although, it's funny you say that because I was just on the CHMB today because I was hunting for the. For those of you who don't know, the Friday emailer comes out, but Ray posts that as a message on the CHMB too. So sometimes it'll show up on the CHMB before it gets to your email box. Because I wanted to order the winter maps, I was looking for it early. But the winter maps for the Spanish division, but specifically. But I was struck by the fact there were 61,000 messages on the CHMB on ATS. So it is not necessarily a dead resource. I don't think there's a whole lot of new stuff there, but there is a crap ton of old stuff on there. So even though we're kind of breathing some new life into it and we're going to provide some new content, there's still a lot of good content over there that you can mine for questions and things like that. So definitely head over there and get signed up. And I think I don't know specifically how you get on the CHMB. I think you have to buy a product, but I'm not 100%.
I don't think you do, actually.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure I signed up.
You just have to ask to sign up or something.
You just sign up, but you sign up and they confirm. They confirm.
Okay, He's very, very, very forward about. Hey, you just need to tell me you're a real person, basically, right? Yep. But there's a lot of good stuff that comes on there, and you get advance notice of things and what have you. So that's a good resource. But again, Devin, thank you so much for being on. We appreciate it, and good luck with lock and load. Don't forget ATS. We're here still. And
How could I forget my favorite tactical system?
Hey, this is going live. It's going to be recorded forever. You said it.
I'm perfectly fine with that. I wouldn't have said it if I wasn't.
Nice. All right. I think that's it. So thank you again, Devin. We'll catch you later.
Thanks, Devin.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Bye.
Peace.